A 13-year-old golden retriever suddenly refuses food and begins to cry, breaking her owner's heart. Days of desperate attempts to save her fail until an unexpected voice from her past changes everything. What did this voice mean to her? And how does it unlock the extraordinary bond they shared? This is a story of resilience, love, and the lengths we go to save those who mean the most. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Eva Sullivan watched the sunset from her kitchen window, the peaceful scene contrasting with her inner turmoil. Her golden retriever Lucy's whimpers drew her to the living room. She knelt beside Lucy's cushion, noting her once bright coat now dull with age, gray hairs speckling her muzzle. Lucy's loving eyes showed deep weariness. The untouched premium dog food joined other rejected meals, organic chicken, eggs, and Lucy's favorite homemade beef stew. Lucy merely thumped her tail weakly when Eva pleaded with her to eat. The house lacked Lucy's usual energy. No excited barks at Eva's return, no following footsteps, no walk requests. Lucy barely lifted her head now. Eva recalled bringing home the energetic puppy after losing her husband Tom. Lucy had helped her through grief and back to joy. Dr. Martinez's recent warning about Lucy's age and appetite loss lingered. Multiple medications lined the coffee table, all seemingly ineffective. Mrs. Peterson visited with soup, reminiscing about Lucy's role as neighborhood guardian. The two women watched Lucy's fitful sleep, her shallow breathing concerning. Eva spent the evening beside Lucy, scrolling through photos of happier times, beach visits, autumn plays, and Christmas celebrations. She made her bed on the floor, unwilling to leave Lucy alone. "I'm right here," Eva whispered, hand resting on Lucy's side, cherishing each breath. Eva sat beside Lucy on the living room floor, looking through their photo album. She touched a photo of Lucy as a tiny puppy in her garden, smiling despite her sadness. 13 years ago, after losing her husband David to a heart attack, Eva's sister had taken her to a shelter. There she found Lucy, the smallest puppy who watched her with knowing eyes. Their connection was instant, breaking through Eva's grief. The album chronicled their life. Lucy destroying the garden, swimming at the lake, camping trips where she kept Eva company. One photo showed Lucy in her therapy dog vest at Eva's mother's retirement home, where she comforted residents who couldn't remember faces but never forgot her. Lucy had been Eva's constant support through dark times and joy. She sensed Eva's moods, offering toys when she cried and warmth when she needed silence. Their morning walks became ritual, and Lucy's excitement never dimmed, teaching Eva to find wonder in routine. The photos captured adventures but couldn't show their deep bond, how Lucy helped Eva rebuild after David's death. At the nursing home, she knew which residents needed her most, like Mrs. Jenkins, who only spoke to Lucy, or Mr. Rodriguez, whose tremors calmed at her touch. Now, closing the album, Eva studied her aging companion. Lucy's golden fur had whitened, her movements slowed, but her eyes held the same love that first captured Eva's heart. As Lucy pressed against her hand, still trying to comfort, Eva kissed her forehead and whispered thanks for their years together. Eva noticed Lucy, her golden retriever, showing signs of age. The dog took longer to get up, moved slower during walks around Palmer Lake, and needed frequent breaks. Other dog walkers and their pets accommodated Lucy's new pace. Mrs. Henderson had remarked on Lucy's aging, comparing it to her own dog Charlie's final days. As autumn approached, Lucy's vitality diminished. She took shorter walks and spent more time sleeping by the window, her face whitening and eyes clouding. At the vet clinic, where they'd shared happier visits, Lucy weakly wagged her tail. Dr. Pearson's exam revealed joint stiffness, but a healthy heart. He advised monitoring her eating habits and behavior, suggesting supplements. Eva adapted, providing senior food, supplements, and a ramp for the steps. Still, Lucy's appetite waned. She refused her favorite treats: peanut butter bones, bakery cookies, and cheese. Eventually, she ignored even roasted chicken and organic peanut butter. Lucy began making soft, distressed sounds throughout the day. Eva create. Eva moved through her kitchen with determined focus, the morning light streaming through the windows as she prepared yet another attempt to tempt Lucy to eat. She warmed chicken broth to the perfect temperature and stirred in small pieces of tender meat, the aroma filling the entire house. Her hands trembled slightly as she carried the bowl to where Lucy lay on her cushion. "Come on, sweetheart," Eva coaxed, kneeling beside her beloved companion. "Just a few bites for me?" Lucy lifted her head weakly, her cloudy eyes meeting Eva's for a moment before turning away from the offered food. A soft whine escaped her throat, breaking Eva's heart all over again. Eva tried hand-feeding her, holding small pieces of chicken right up to Lucy's nose. But Lucy only turned her head away and settled deeper into her bed. The phone rang throughout the day with calls from concerned friends. Sarah from the dog park brought over her famous homemade beef stew, swearing it had worked wonders when her own dog had stopped eating last year. Tom from next door shared stories about his childhood retriever who had bounced back from similar situations. Margaret from church brought casseroles for Eva, knowing she was too worried about Lucy to cook for herself. "Remember when Lucy stole that entire turkey from my Thanksgiving table?" Margaret reminisced, trying to lift Eva's spirits. "She had so much energy, we couldn't catch her for 10 minutes straight. That spirit is still in there, Eva. Don't give up hope." But as each day passed, Eva's hope dimmed. She tried everything she could think of, warming Lucy's regular food, adding special vitamin supplements, even attempting to syringe feed her with liquid nutrients. Nothing worked. Lucy would either turn away or let the food dribble out of her mouth, her eyes carrying a sadness that seemed to reach into Eva's very soul. Nights became an endless cycle of worry and interrupted sleep. Eva would jolt awake at the slightest sound, her heart racing at Lucy's occasional whimpers. She'd spend hours sitting beside Lucy's bed, stroking her fur and whispering prayers into the darkness. The weight of helplessness pressed heavily on her shoulders as she watched her once vibrant companion grow weaker. During the day, Eva found herself constantly checking on Lucy, her stomach clenching each time she approached, dreading what she might find. The house felt heavier somehow, filled with an oppressive silence broken only by Lucy's occasional cries of discomfort. Even the sunlight streaming through the windows seemed dimmer, as if nature itself was acknowledging their shared sorrow. Lucy's eyes, once bright and full of life, now carried a distant look that frightened Eva more than anything else. It was as if her beloved friend was already beginning to fade away, retreating to some place Eva couldn't follow. The thought of losing Lucy, her constant companion through so many of life's challenges, felt like a physical pain in her chest. The clock on Eva's nightstand ticked past midnight, its red numbers casting a faint glow in the darkness. She had been tossing and turning, unable to find rest while worry gnawed at her thoughts. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heating system and the occasional creak of settling wood. Then she heard it, a sound that made her heart stop. From Lucy's corner came a whimper, unlike any Eva had heard before. It wasn't the usual cry of physical discomfort that had become all too familiar over the past days. This sound was different, softer, more plaintive, almost like a child calling out in need. Eva threw back her covers and rushed across the cold hardwood floor, her bare feet barely registering the chill. As she approached Lucy's bed, the moonlight filtering through the window revealed a sight that made her breath catch in her throat. Lucy was trembling, her aging body shaking beneath her golden fur. But it was her eyes that struck Eva the hardest. They were wet with tears, glistening in the dim light. "Oh, Lucy," Eva whispered, dropping to her knees beside the dog bed. She reached out to stroke Lucy's head, feeling the slight tremors running through her beloved companion's body. Lucy made that sound again, a quiet, heart-wrenching whimper that seemed to carry years of love and longing within it. The cry wasn't just pain. Eva could hear something else in it. There was a yearning quality to the sound, as if Lucy was trying to communicate something beyond physical discomfort. It reminded Eva of the way Lucy used to cry when she missed someone she loved, like when Eva's niece would visit and then leave, or when a favorite dog friend moved away from the neighborhood. Eva's hand shook as she tried to comfort Lucy, gently running her fingers through the soft fur behind her ears, Lucy's favorite spot. But the trembling didn't stop. And those eyes, those soulful eyes that had watched Eva through so many life moments, continued to well with tears. Time seemed to stretch as Eva sat there in the darkness, her heart growing heavier with each passing moment. The reality of the situation pressed down on her like a physical weight. If Lucy continued to refuse food, she wouldn't make it through the week. The thought sent a wave of panic through Eva's chest, making it hard to breathe. She pulled Lucy's bed closer, positioning herself so she could lean against the wall while keeping one hand on her precious dog. The moon cast long shadows across the floor as Eva watched Lucy's labored breathing, each rise and fall of her chest a reminder of how precious and precarious these moments had become. The night stretched on, with Lucy's occasional soft cries piercing the silence like arrows to Eva's heart. Each sound seemed to carry a different note of longing, of need, of something Eva couldn't quite understand, but desperately wished she could. The next morning, Eva carefully lifted Lucy into the back seat of her SUV. The morning sun had barely crept over the horizon when she called Dr. Pearson's office, and his staff had immediately cleared a spot for an emergency visit. Lucy's whimpers from the previous night still echoed in Eva's mind, spurring her to drive with focused determination through the quiet streets. Dr. Pearson's clinic sat in a small shopping center, its brick facade warmed by the early morning light. The parking lot was nearly empty when Eva pulled in, her tires crunching over scattered autumn leaves. Getting Lucy out of the car proved challenging. The once energetic dog could barely support her own weight now. "Here, let me help," called one of the vet technicians, rushing out with a wheeled stretcher. Together, they gently transferred Lucy onto it. Eva's heart clenched at how light Lucy felt, how prominent her ribs had become under her golden coat. Inside the examination room, Dr. Pearson's familiar calm presence provided some comfort. His gray hair and kind eyes reflected years of experience as he methodically examined Lucy, running his hands along her body while speaking softly to her. Eva watched anxiously as he drew blood samples and performed various tests, each moment of waiting feeling like an eternity. "Her vital signs are stable," Dr. Pearson finally announced, studying the results. "Or her organs are showing strain, which is expected at her age, but there's no catastrophic failure." He adjusted his glasses, looking thoughtfully at Lucy, who lay motionless on the steel examination table. "The blood work shows some irregularities, but nothing that fully explains her current state." Eva's voice trembled as she asked, "Then why won't she eat? Why does she seem so distant?" Dr. Pearson pulled up a chair, his expression gentle but serious. "Sometimes," he explained, leaning forward slightly, "older dogs begin to give up, especially if they're missing something significant in their lives. It's not uncommon for them to show signs of depression or withdrawal, particularly if they've experienced any recent changes or losses. Eva dabbed at her eyes with a tissue as Dr. Pearson wrote out prescriptions. "We'll start her on a mild pain reliever to make her more comfortable," he said, "and some vitamins to support her system. The key now is keeping her comfortable and watching for any small improvements." Lucy remained still on the examination table, her eyes half closed. A tear slipped down Eva's cheek as she stroked Lucy's fur, the dog's lack of response to her touch more worrying than any test result. The morning light streaming through the window highlighted the gray around Lucy's muzzle, making her look even more fragile. "Thank you, Dr. Pearson," Eva managed to say, clutching the prescriptions in her hand, while continuing to pet Lucy with the other. Her mind raced with worry that these interventions might be too little, too late to help her beloved companion find her way back to health. Back in her quiet living room, Eva sat cross-legged on the carpet, surrounded by stacks of photo albums. Lucy lay nearby on her bed, occasionally lifting her head at the sound of pages turning. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air as Eva carefully opened each leather-bound book. "There must be something here," Eva muttered, her fingers trailing over plastic-covered pages filled with memories. She paused at a Christmas photo from 5 years ago, showing Lucy wearing reindeer antlers, but continued searching for earlier memories. The third album held what she was looking for. Eva's breath caught as she opened to a page from 7 years ago. There was Lucy, younger and more vibrant, playing fetch in the backyard, with a smiling young woman with auburn hair. Kayla Adams, the college student who had rented Eva's spare room while interning at the local animal shelter. More photos followed. Kayla and Lucy sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by toys. Another showed them sharing an ice cream cone in the park. Lucy's tongue caught mid-lick. Each image captured the special bond between the young woman and the golden retriever. Eva remembered how quickly they had connected. Kayla, away from home for the first time, had found comfort in Lucy's unconditional friendship. Every morning, Lucy would wait outside Kayla's door, tail wagging with excitement for their pre-breakfast walk. After Kayla's shelter shifts, she'd spend hours teaching Lucy new tricks, rewarding her with treats and endless belly rubs. The memories flooded back as Eva turned each page. Kayla had a way with Lucy that was magical, her gentle voice and patient nature bringing out the best in the dog. They'd spend weekends at the dog park, and Kayla would brush Lucy's coat in the evenings while studying for her classes. When Kayla moved away for a job opportunity in another state, Lucy had moped around the house for days. She'd lie outside Kayla's empty room, whining softly, missing her friend's presence and the sound of her voice. Now, watching Lucy's current state, the way she cried at night, her refusal to eat, Eva's mind began connecting the dots. Lucy's whimpers seemed different lately, almost yearning, as if calling out for someone specific. The dog's behavior reminded Eva of those days right after Kayla left. Could it be? Eva wondered aloud, looking between the photos and her ailing companion. Lucy's ears perked slightly at her voice, but her eyes remained distant and sad. The similarity between Lucy's past reaction to Kayla's departure and her current state of withdrawal was striking. Eva gathered the scattered photos, her heart beating faster as an idea took shape. Lucy's desperate cries might not just be from physical pain. Perhaps they stemmed from a deeper emotional need. Maybe what Lucy needed wasn't just medical treatment, but the comfort of a familiar, loving voice from her past. Eva's hands trembled as she dug through her desk drawers searching for her old address book. Paper scattered across the hardwood floor, but she barely noticed. Her focus was singular, finding Kayla's contact information. Lucy watched from her bed, her tired eyes following Eva's frantic movements. "It has to be here somewhere," Eva muttered, pushing aside old bills and forgotten birthday cards. Finally, in the bottom drawer, she found the worn leather book, its pages yellow with age. She flipped through it desperately, her finger tracing down each page until she found what she was looking for: Kayla Adams, with her old cell phone number scribbled in blue ink. Eva grabbed her phone, punching in the numbers with shaking fingers. Her heart sank when an automated message announced the number was no longer in service. Of course, it had been 7 years. Taking a deep breath, Eva turned to her computer. Social media searches led nowhere. Kayla hadn't posted in years. But Eva remembered Kayla mentioning the animal shelter where she'd wanted to work after graduation. After 3 calls to different shelters and explaining her situation to sympathetic receptionists, Eva finally got a lead. "Oh, Kayla Adams? She's actually at our sister facility in Burlington now," the receptionist said. Eva quickly scribbled down the new contact information, hope blooming in her chest. When the phone rang at the Burlington Animal Sanctuary, Eva's voice quivered as she asked for Kayla. The minutes of waiting felt like hours, until finally a familiar voice came on the line. "This is Kayla Adams." "Kayla? This is Eva Sullivan from Greenfield. You used to rent a room from me during college." "Eva." Kayla's voice brightened with recognition, then quickly shifted to concern. "Is everything okay?" Eva's composure cracked as she explained Lucy's condition, her words tumbling out in a rush. She described the dog's refusal to eat, the constant whimpering, and how finding the old photos had made her think of Kayla. "Oh no, Lucy," Kayla's voice caught. "She's 13 now? I can't believe it's been so long." There was rustling on the other end of the line, the sound of papers being moved. "I need to come see her. I can leave tonight after my shift." "You do that?" Eva asked, tears welling in her eyes. "Of course. She is so special to me. I've missed her so much." Kayla's voice trembled with emotion. "I'll drive straight through. It's about 6 hours. I can be there by morning." Eva glanced at Lucy, who had lifted her head slightly at the sound of voices. "Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much." After arranging the details, Eva hung up and knelt beside Lucy's bed. She gently stroked the dog's graying muzzle, noticing how Lucy leaned slightly into her touch. "Kayla's coming, girl," Eva whispered, her heart feeling lighter than it had in days. "Just hold on." The storm raged outside the airport terminal, lightning flashing across the dark sky as Kayla paced anxiously near the flight information board. Her heart sank as she watched her flight status change from delayed to canceled. Around her, other stranded passengers groaned and rushed to the customer service desk, forming a line that snaked through the terminal. Kayla pulled out her phone, her hands shaking as she dialed Eva's number. The connection crackled with static from the storm. "Eva, the flight's been canceled. They're saying all flights are grounded until the weather clears." Through the phone, she heard Eva's sharp intake of breath. "How long?" Eva asked, her voice tight with worry. "I don't know. The earliest they can rebook me is in 2 days." Kayla ran her fingers through her hair, fighting back tears of frustration. "I'm so sorry, Eva. I'm trying to find another way. Maybe I can rent a car." "The highways between here and Burlington are flooded," Eva replied softly. "The news says it's not safe to drive." In the background, Kayla heard Lucy's faint whimper, the sound making her chest ache. Eva's voice grew distant as she presumably turned to comfort Lucy. "It's okay, girl. Kayla's trying to come." Back at Eva's house, Lucy lay curled in her bed, her ribs now visible through her dulling coat. The once plump golden retriever had lost so much weight that her collar hung loose around her neck. Eva knelt beside her, trying to tempt her with a piece of chicken, but Lucy only turned her head away, her her eyes lacking their usual spark. Eva noticed more gray hairs around Lucy's muzzle, as if the dog had aged years in just days. The sight made her stomach clench with fear. She remembered how Lucy used to bound through the house, her tail wagging so hard her whole body shook with joy. Now, even lifting her head seemed to require tremendous effort. At the airport, Kayla approached the car rental counter, hope flaring briefly before being extinguished. "I'm sorry," the agent said, "but we can't rent in these conditions. The Weather Service has issued flood warnings across 3 states. Kayla slumped against the counter, watching through the terminal windows as another bolt of lightning split the sky. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and somewhere, hundreds of miles away, Lucy was slipping away. She called Eva again, her voice breaking. "The rental agencies won't let anyone take cars out. Eva, I'm trapped here. I'm looking at bus schedules, trains, anything." Eva's response was interrupted by Lucy's crying, a sound so full of longing it made both women fall silent. The dog's whimpers echoed through the phone, each one a reminder of precious time slipping away. Eva's voice wavered. "Just keep trying, Kayla. Please." As another day stretched before them, Eva watched Lucy's declining strength with growing despair. The dog's once bright eyes had become clouded with exhaustion, and her breathing seemed more labored. Eva couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time, that each passing hour dimmed the chance of Lucy holding on until Kayla could arrive. Eva sat cross-legged on the floor beside Lucy's bed, her phone clutched tightly in her trembling hands. After 3 days of watching Lucy decline, desperation had led her to try anything. The evening light filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the living room, where Lucy lay motionless, her breathing shallow. "I'm putting you on speaker, Kayla," Eva said, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. She placed the phone close to Lucy's bed, adjusting the volume. "Talk to her, please." Kayla's voice came through, soft and clear, despite the storm still raging in Burlington. Lucy girl, can you hear me?" The change was subtle, but immediate. Lucy's right ear twitched, the first voluntary movement she'd made in hours. Her eyes, which had been half closed and distant, opened just a fraction wider. "That's right, sweet girl," Kayla continued, her voice thick with emotion. "It's me. I've been thinking about our walks by the lake. Remember those? How you'd always try to chase the ducks?" Lucy's head lifted slightly from her bed, the movement clearly requiring enormous effort. Her nose twitched, seeking the source of the familiar voice. A soft, questioning whine escaped her throat, the first sound she'd made all day that wasn't from pain. Eva's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's responding, Kayla. She's actually responding." Encouraged, Kayla's voice grew stronger. "I miss you so much, Lucy. I'm trying so hard to get there. Remember how we used to play fetch with your favorite red ball? How you'd never let anyone else throw it but me?" Lucy's whine became more pronounced, carrying a note of longing that made Eva's heart ache. The old dog's tail moved ever so slightly against her bed, not quite a wag, but a clear sign of recognition. "I'm coming, Lucy," Kayla promised, her voice breaking with emotion. "You have to hang on for me, sweet girl. I need to see those beautiful eyes of yours again. I need to give you the biggest hug." Through the phone's speaker, they could hear Kayla trying to control her sobs. Lucy's response was immediate. Another whine, this one stronger, more insistent. She lifted her head higher, her clouded eyes searching the room for her long-lost friend. "That's my brave girl," Kayla encouraged, sniffling. "Just a little longer, Lucy. I'm coming. I promise. I'm coming." Eva watched in amazement as Lucy continued to respond to Kayla's voice, showing more energy than she had in days. It wasn't much. Lucy was still very weak. But there was a spark there that had been missing, a tiny flame of life rekindling in those tired eyes. In the hours following Kayla's phone call, a subtle but significant change swept through Ava's home. The heavy curtain of despair that had settled over the house began to lift, replaced by tentative rays of hope. Lucy, though still weak and refusing solid food, showed the first real signs of improvement since her decline began. Ava watched, hardly daring to breathe, as Lucy's head lifted slightly toward her water bowl. The old dog's movements were slow and deliberate, each motion requiring visible effort. Her paws trembled as she pushed herself up just enough to reach the bowl's edge. The sound of Lucy's tongue lapping at the water, however faint, filled Eva with overwhelming relief. "That's it, sweet girl," Eva whispered, her voice catching. She sat cross-legged on the floor beside Lucy, gently stroking the dog's golden fur. "Kayla's coming home to see you. You just need to keep fighting." Throughout the afternoon, Lucy took several more careful sips of water. Though she still turned her nose away from the bowl of kibble Eva had placed nearby, each lap of water felt like a small victory. Ava documented every moment, sending quick text updates to Kayla, who responded with encouraging messages and estimated arrival times. The living room, which had felt like a site of vigil just hours before, transformed into a space of careful preparation. Eva gathered Lucy's favorite blankets, creating a soft nest near the couch where she could keep constant watch. She positioned Lucy's bed away from drafts but close to where the morning sun would warm her aging bones. The stairs had become too challenging for Lucy's weakened legs, so Eva brought down everything they might need: water bowls, medications, and Lucy's cherished toys. As evening approached, Ava noticed Lucy's eyes tracking her movements more alertly than before. The dog's gaze, though still clouded with age and exhaustion, held a spark of awareness that had been missing for days. When Eva spoke about Kayla's imminent arrival, Lucy's ears would perk up slightly and her tail would stir against her blankets. "Just a little longer," Eva murmured, settling down beside Lucy's bed with a book she knew she wouldn't read. Her hand never left Lucy's fur, maintaining that vital connection. The gentle rise and fall of Lucy's breathing had become precious music, each breath a reminder that they hadn't lost this fight yet. The house, once heavy with the weight of impending loss, now hummed with careful anticipation. Eva had placed her phone within easy reach, its volume turned up high in case Kayla called with updates about her travel plans. Every few minutes, Lucy would lift her head slightly as if listening for familiar footsteps, before settling back into her bed with a soft sigh. After what felt like an eternity of delays, a car's headlights finally swept across Eva's front windows. Eva rushed to open the door before Kayla could even knock. There stood the young woman, her travel-worn face etched with worry and exhaustion, clutching a small overnight bag. The moment their eyes met, Kayla stumbled forward into Eva's waiting arms. "Where is she?" Kayla's voice quavered, her words muffled against Eva's shoulder. There was no time for proper greetings or catching up. Both women knew what mattered most right now. Eva led Kayla through the dimly lit hallway toward the living room, where Lucy lay in her carefully arranged bed of blankets. The old dog's breathing was shallow but steady, her golden coat dulled by days of illness. Kayla's hands flew to her mouth at the sight, tears already welling in her eyes. "Lucy," Kayla called out softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lucy, it's me, girl." At the sound of that familiar voice, no longer distant through a phone speaker, but real and present, Lucy's eyes slowly opened. The clouded brown eyes that had been so listless for days suddenly sparked with recognition. A weak whimper escaped her throat as she struggled to lift her head from her bed. Kayla dropped to her knees beside Lucy's bed, not caring about the tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. Lucy's tail, which had been still for so long, began to thump weakly against the floor, a ghost of her once vigorous wag, but unmistakable in its meaning. "I'm here, girl," Kayla whispered, gently stroking Lucy's face. Her fingers trembled as they traced the familiar white markings around Lucy's muzzle, now touched with more gray than she remembered. "I've missed you so much." Lucy's entire body quivered with the effort to respond to Kayla's touch, but the recognition in her gaze was clear and unwavering. She managed to lift her head just enough to press it against Kayla's hand, releasing another soft whimper that seemed to hold all the longing of their time apart. Ava stood watching, her own tears falling silently as she witnessed the reunion. Lucy's response to Kayla's presence was more than she had dared to hope for after so many days of decline. The old dog's body might be frail, but the love shining in her eyes was as strong as ever. "Sweet Lucy," Kayla continued to murmur, her gentle hands never leaving Lucy's fur. The dog's trembling continued, but there was something different about it now. Not the weakness of defeat, but the tremor of emotion, of recognition, of connection restored. Kayla settled onto the plush carpet beside Lucy's bed, her legs folded underneath her. The familiar scent of dog fur and Eva's lavender air freshener brought back a flood of memories from her time in this house. She reached out to stroke Lucy's ear, just the way she used to years ago. "Remember how we used to spend hours in the backyard, Lucy?" Kayla's voice was soft and melodic, the kind of tone that had always made Lucy's tail wag. "You never got tired of chasing that red tennis ball, even when it was almost too dark to see." Lucy's eyes remained fixed on Kayla's face, drinking in every word. The old dog's breathing seemed to steady as Kayla continued sharing their shared history. "And those rainy days when we'd curl up on the couch together?" Kayla smiled through her tears. "You'd always try to be a lapdog, even though you were way too big. Remember how we'd watch those nature shows, and you'd bark at every animal on screen?" Eva watched from her armchair, her heart warming at the sight of Lucy's renewed attention. It was as if each word from Kayla was breathing life back into her beloved companion. Kayla reached for the small container she'd brought with her, homemade chicken broth with tiny pieces of boiled meat, still warm from her preparation before the flight. The aroma filled the room, and Lucy's nostrils twitched ever so slightly. "I made this just for you, sweet girl," Kayla whispered, holding a small spoonful of broth near Lucy's mouth. "Remember how we used to share chicken sandwiches in the park? You always knew when I had an extra piece saved just for you." For a moment, nothing happened. The room held its breath. Then slowly, Lucy's tongue emerged and tentatively lapped at the warm liquid. Eva leaned forward in her chair, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. After a pause, Lucy licked again, this time managing to swallow a small amount of the broth. "That's it, good girl," Kayla encouraged, her voice thick with emotion. She offered another spoonful, and Lucy accepted it with slightly more enthusiasm. Eva and Kayla's eyes met over Lucy's head, sharing a look of cautious hope. It wasn't much, just a few laps of broth, but after days of complete rejection of food, it felt like a miracle. Eva's hands were clasped tightly together, her knuckles white with tension and hope. "She's fighting," Kayla said softly, continuing to offer tiny amounts of broth to Lucy. She just needed a reminder of why. Lucy's tail thumped weakly against her bed again as she took another small taste of the broth. Though her movements were still feeble, there was a new spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before Kayla's arrival. The peaceful progress of the evening shattered around midnight when Lucy's body began trembling uncontrollably. Her earlier willingness to sip broth vanished, replaced by soft, distressed whimpers that grew increasingly urgent. She turned her head away from the bowl Kayla offered, her eyes clouded with pain. "Something's wrong," Kayla said, her voice tight with worry as she stroked Lucy's fur. The old dog's muscles felt tense under her touch, and Lucy flinched even at the gentlest contact. Eva immediately reached for her phone, her fingers shaking as she dialed Dr. Pearson's emergency number. "She was doing so well," she whispered, watching Lucy curl into herself, each movement seeming to cause discomfort. Dr. Pearson answered quickly, and after hearing the symptoms, instructed them to bring Lucy in right away. The clock showed 12:45 a.m. as they carefully lifted Lucy into Eva's car, using a soft blanket as a sling to minimize her discomfort. The veterinary clinic's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Lucy's face as they carried her inside. Dr. Pearson met them at the door, his face etched with concern, but maintaining his professional composure. "Let's take a look at our girl," he said softly, helping them settle Lucy onto the examination table. His experienced hands moved gently over Lucy's body, paying special attention to her joints and spine. Lucy whimpered when he touched certain spots, particularly around her hips and lower back. "I suspect we're dealing with inflammation in her joints," Dr. Pearson explained, continuing his examination. "The excitement of Kayla's return might have prompted her to move more than she has in days, and her body is protesting." Eva gripped Kayla's hand tightly as they watched Dr. Pearson work. The vet drew some blood for testing and carefully felt along Lucy's spine again. "The good news is that this is manageable," he said, reaching for his prescription pad. "I'm going to adjust her medication regimen. We'll add a mild anti-inflammatory that should help ease her discomfort." He turned to face both women directly. "The physical pain is real, but don't underestimate the importance of emotional support right now. Lucy's age makes her vulnerable, but her will to live seems stronger since Kayla's return. That emotional connection can be as powerful as any medicine." Dr. Pearson prepared the new medication while explaining the adjusted dosage schedule. "Keep her comfortable, but don't stop encouraging her to move gently when she feels up to it. The key is finding the right balance." Lucy lay quietly on the table, her eyes moving between the three humans as they discussed her care. The pain had left her exhausted, but she managed to lick Kayla's hand when it came close to her face. Back at home, Kayla made a series of quick phone calls, first to her employer requesting emergency leave, then to cancel her return flight. Her voice was firm and determined as she explained the situation. "I need to stay here. Lucy needs me," she told her boss, relief washing over her face when he understood. Eva watched from the kitchen doorway, touched by Kayla's dedication. They quickly fell into a natural rhythm, dividing the day into shifts to ensure Lucy always had someone by her side. Eva took the morning and afternoon watches, while Kayla handled evenings and early mornings, with both of them checking in during the night whenever Lucy stirred. "Remember how I used to sing to you?" Kayla whispered to Lucy during one of their quiet evening sessions. She began humming softly, an old tune she'd learned from her grandmother. The familiar melody filled the living room, and Lucy's ears twitched in recognition. The tension in the old dog's body began to ease, her breathing becoming more regular and peaceful. Eva noticed how Lucy responded to these musical moments. "She remembers," she said softly, watching Lucy's tail give a gentle thump against the floor cushion. "Keep singing, Kayla." Throughout the days that followed, Kayla continued her gentle serenades, mixing in quiet conversation about their shared memories. She told stories about their afternoon walks and the tricks they used to practice together, her voice maintaining that soothing quality that seemed to reach deep into Lucy's soul. Their patience and dedication began showing results. On the third morning, Lucy lifted her head when Eva brought her breakfast, a small bowl of boiled chicken mixed with rice, prepared according to Dr. Pearson's instructions. To their joy, she didn't turn away. Instead, she took small, tentative bites. "That's it, sweet girl," Kayla encouraged, sitting cross-legged beside Lucy's bed. "Just a little bit at a time." Eva kept careful notes of everything Lucy ate, marking down times and portions in a small notebook. Each finished meal, no matter how small, felt like a triumph. They celebrated these quiet victories with gentle pets and soft words of praise, careful not to overwhelm Lucy with too much excitement. The medication Dr. Pearson prescribed seemed to be helping too. Lucy's pain appeared more manageable, and her eyes looked clearer, more present. Though she still moved carefully, the sharp whimpers of discomfort became less frequent. "Look how far she's come in just a few days," Eva remarked one evening, watching Lucy finish another small portion of food. Kayla nodded, her hand resting gently on Lucy's back, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing. The house grew quiet as evening settled in, with only the soft ticking of the wall clock and Lucy's gentle breathing filling the space. Eva and Kayla sat in the living room, sharing cups of chamomile tea, while Lucy dozed nearby on her cushion. The warm lamplight cast a cozy glow over them all, creating an intimate atmosphere perfect for honest conversation. "You know," Kayla began, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup, "when you called about Lucy, it felt like more than just coincidence." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I've been struggling lately, feeling so alone in the city." Eva set her cup down carefully, giving Kayla her full attention. The younger woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "My apartment feels empty, even though it's in this bustling neighborhood. I work at this big marketing firm now, but some days," Kayla's voice wavered, "some days I feel like I'm just going through the motions. No real connections, no true friendships like what I had here." Lucy stirred in her sleep, letting out a small whimper. Both women turned to look at her, and Kayla reached out to stroke her soft fur. "When you told me about Lucy not eating, something clicked inside me," Kayla continued. "It was like she knew somehow, like she could feel what I was feeling, even from so far away." She wiped away a tear that had escaped. "I've been starving too, in a way, not for food, but for genuine connection." Eva moved closer, placing a comforting hand on Kayla's shoulder. "Lucy always had a special way of knowing what people needed. Remember how she used to follow you around whenever you were stressed about exams?" "She did," Kayla smiled through her tears. "She would bring me her favorite toy, insisting I take a break to play with her. Somehow, she always knew exactly when I needed it most." Lucy's tail thumped softly against her cushion, as if acknowledging their conversation. The sound made both women smile. "I think maybe we all needed this," Eva reflected. "Lucy needed you back. You needed to come home. And I needed help remembering that love doesn't diminish with time or distance." "Whatever time we have left with her," Kayla said firmly, reaching out to hold Eva's hand, "we'll make it count. Every single moment." Lucy lifted her head slightly, looking at the both with those soulful brown eyes that had seen them through so many seasons of life. Her gaze seemed to hold all the wisdom and love of their shared years together. "We'll give her all the love and comfort she needs," Eva agreed, squeezing Kayla's hand, "just like she's always done for us." The morning sun filtered through the living room curtains, casting warm patches of light across the hardwood floor. Eva had fallen asleep in her armchair, while Kayla dozed on the nearby couch. The quiet morning peace was broken by an unfamiliar sound, a gentle scratching against metal. Eva stirred first, her eyes opening slowly. The noise continued, accompanied by a soft whine that made her heart skip a beat. There, in the corner by her water bowl, Lucy stood on shaky legs, her paw gently pushing at her empty food dish. The bowl scraped quietly against the floor as she nudged it. "Kayla," Eva whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "Kayla, wake up." Kayla jolted awake, rubbing her eyes. "What's wrong? Is Lucy okay?" "Look," Eva pointed, tears welling in her eyes. Lucy turned her head toward them, her eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks. Her tail lifted slightly, managing 2 gentle swishes, nothing like her former enthusiastic wags, but a movement that spoke volumes about her improving spirit. "She's asking for food," Kayla breathed in amazement. "She actually wants to eat." They scrambled to prepare Lucy's breakfast, moving with careful excitement to avoid overwhelming her. Eva warmed some chicken broth while Kayla measured out small portions of soft food. Their hands shook as they worked, stealing glances at Lucy, who watched them with attentive eyes. When they set the bowl down, Lucy approached slowly but deliberately. Her movements were still stiff, showing her age and arthritis, but there was purpose in each step. She sniffed the food, and to their joy, began to eat on her own. "I need to call Dr. Pearson," Eva said, wiping happy tears from her cheeks. "He needs to see this." Dr. Pearson arrived within the hour, his face showing pleasant surprise as he watched Lucy finish the last bits of her breakfast. He performed a gentle examination, noting Lucy's improved responsiveness and the spark of life in her eyes. "This is remarkable," he said, shaking his head in wonder. "Her vital signs are stronger, and her eyes are much clearer. Whatever you two are doing, it's working. She's fighting back." Lucy pressed her nose against his hand as if thanking him for his care. The gesture made him smile broadly. "Keep up with her medications in this supportive environment," Dr. Pearson advised. "She's showing us she's not done yet. Sometimes having the right people around makes all the difference in the world." Eva and Kayla exchanged emotional glances as Lucy settled between them, her presence feeling stronger than it had in weeks. Her tail continued its gentle swishing, and though she moved carefully, there was a new steadiness to her steps that filled the room with hope. The following days fell into a gentle rhythm as Lucy's strength gradually returned. Each morning, Kayla would prepare a special mixture of soft food and warm broth, while Eva measured out Lucy's medications. The old golden retriever's appetite, though not quite back to normal, showed steady improvement. She no longer turned away from her bowl, but approached meals with cautious interest. "That's my good girl," Kayla would say softly, sitting cross-legged beside Lucy as she ate. The familiar voice seemed to encourage Lucy, who would pause between bites to press her nose against Kayla's knee. The pain medications helped ease Lucy's discomfort, allowing her to rest more peacefully at night. Her whimpers became less frequent, replaced by content sighs as she dozed on her cushion. Eva noticed how Lucy's eyes followed Kayla around the room, maintaining that connection they'd rekindled. They started taking short walks in the front yard, never pushing too far. Lucy would take tentative steps, her paws pressing carefully against the grass as if testing her own strength. These brief excursions seemed to awaken something in her spirit, a reminder of the joy of simply being outside. One sunny afternoon, Kayla gently led Lucy toward the backyard. "Remember this place, sweet girl?" she asked, her voice soft with emotion. The backyard held countless memories of their shared past. Games of fetch, afternoon naps in the sun, and endless rounds of belly rubs. Lucy paused at the threshold, her nose lifting to catch the familiar scents. The old maple tree still stood sentinel over her favorite spots, its leaves casting dancing shadows on the ground. She inhaled deeply, taking in the mix of grass, flowers, and the lingering traces of past play sessions. As they stood there together, Lucy's expression changed subtly. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, that distinctive golden retriever smile that had been absent for so long. It wasn't the full, joyful grin of her younger days, but it carried echoes of that same happiness. Kayla felt her own heart lifting as she watched Lucy explore the old familiar space. The dog moved slowly but purposefully, revisiting spots that held special meaning for both of them. She lingered under the maple tree where they used to rest after playing. her tail moving in gentle swishes. The simple act of caring for Lucy seemed to heal something in Kayla, too. Each small victory, a finished meal, a peaceful nap, a moment of connection, reminded her of the pure, uncomplicated joy she'd known during her time here. Lucy's resilience touched something deep within her, bringing back memories of easier days when love flowed freely and unconditionally between them. Eva watched from the back porch as Kayla and Lucy shared these quiet moments of reconnection. She saw how both of them seemed to draw strength from each other, Lucy finding her way back to life, and Kayla rediscovering parts of herself she'd forgotten. The backyard became more than just a space. It transformed into a sanctuary where healing happened one gentle step at a time. The peaceful routine they'd established was shattered one night by a harsh, rattling sound. Lucy's body shook with violent coughs that seemed to come from deep in her chest. Eva, who had been dozing on the couch nearby, jolted awake at the disturbing noise. "Kayla," Eva called out, her voice tight with worry. "Something's wrong with Lucy." Kayla rushed down from the guest room, her feet thundering on the stairs. Lucy's coughing continued, each spasm racking her frail body. Between coughs, she struggled to catch her breath, her sides heaving with the effort. They wrapped Lucy in a warm blanket, trying to keep her still as she trembled. The clock showed 2:37 a.m. when they called Dr. Pearson's emergency number. The veterinarian, hearing the urgency in Eva's voice, agreed to meet them at his clinic. The drive felt endless. Lucy lay across the back seat with her head on Kayla's lap, still coughing intermittently. Eva kept glancing in the rearview mirror, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Dr. Pearson's examination was thorough. He listened to Lucy's chest with his stethoscope, frowning slightly at what he heard. "There are some concerning sounds in her lungs," he explained, his usual calm voice carrying an edge of worry. "We need to start her on antibiotics immediately. Given her age and weakened state, we have to watch for pneumonia." The word pneumonia hit Eva and Kayla like a physical blow. Oh, they knew how dangerous such an infection could be for an elderly dog, especially one already struggling with other health issues. Back home, they created a careful schedule to manage Lucy's growing list of medications. Morning and evening doses of pain relievers for her joints, antibiotics 3 times a day, and various supplements to support her immune system. They set alarms on their phones, determined not to miss a single dose. Lucy's cough lingered, though less severe than that first frightening night. They kept her warm with extra blankets and monitored her breathing constantly. Every slight wheeze or labored breath sent waves of anxiety through both women. During one particularly difficult night, Lucy's soft whimpers drew Kayla from her sleep. She found the old dog restless, tears gathering in her clouded eyes. Sitting beside Lucy on the floor, Kayla felt doubt creep into her heart. "Are we doing the right thing?" she whispered to Eva, who had also woken up. "All these medications, all this struggle, are we just prolonging her pain because we can't let go?" Eva had no answer, but she understood the question all too well. They watched Lucy's chest rise and fall with each labored breath, both wrestling with the weight of their decisions. The line between helping and hurting seemed to blur more each day, leaving them uncertain if their determination to save Lucy was truly what was best for her. Lucy's gentle brown eyes moved between them, filled with trust despite her discomfort. Her tail thumped weakly against the floor, still trying to comfort them, even in her distress. As news of Lucy's struggle spread through the neighborhood, a remarkable thing happened. The quiet cul-de-sac transformed into a steady stream of caring visitors. Mrs. Chen from next door arrived first, carrying a wicker basket filled with carefully prepared chicken and rice, made specifically following Dr. Pearson's dietary guidelines for Lucy. My mother always said food heals both body and spirit, Mrs. Chen explained softly, demonstrating how she'd chopped the ingredients into tiny, easily digestible pieces. Throughout the day, more neighbors appeared. Sarah, the retired seamstress from 3 houses down, brought something special. A handmade fleece blanket in soft cream colors, with Lucy's name lovingly embroidered in golden thread. "For our neighborhood's golden girl," she said, her eyes misting as she watched Lucy sniff at the gift. The Martinez family's children had drawn get-well cards with crayon pictures of Lucy playing in their shared backyard. Their mother, Maria, brought fresh flowers to brighten the living room, filling the space with the gentle scent of spring roses. Even Mr. Thompson, known for being rather gruff, showed up with homemade dog biscuits. "My late wife's recipe," he mumbled, looking embarrassed but pleased when Lucy managed a few small nibbles. As the days passed, Lucy's harsh coughing gradually subsided. The antibiotics seemed to be working, and her breathing became less labored. Though she still moved slowly and carefully, there was a noticeable improvement in her energy levels. She began lifting her head more often to watch visitors, and her tail would give subtle wags of recognition. One afternoon, while Lucy rested on her new blanket, Eva noticed something different in the old dog's eyes. The clouded, distant look had been replaced by a familiar warmth, that special Lucy sparkle that had always made her more than just a pet. It wasn't the boundless energy of her younger years, but rather a quiet, dignified presence that spoke of her fighting spirit. Kayla sat cross-legged beside Lucy, gently stroking her ears. "Look at how many people love you, sweet girl," she whispered. "You're teaching us all something important." Indeed, Lucy's journey had become more than just one dog's fight for recovery. The neighborhood's response showed how compassion could unite people, breaking down the usual barriers of busy lives and casual acquaintances. Every small improvement in Lucy's condition was celebrated as a shared victory. Every setback met with renewed support and encouragement. Each morning brought new signs of Lucy's quiet determination. Though she might never again chase squirrels or bound through snowdrifts, her gentle perseverance touched everyone who witnessed it. She ate her meals with more interest now, accepted her medications without fuss, and seemed to draw strength from the love surrounding her. One sunny afternoon, Kayla sat in Eva's home office, adjusting the microphone settings on Eva's old laptop. The warm light filtered through the curtains as she carefully selected her words, wanting to create something special for Lucy. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed the record button. "Hey, Lucy girl," she began softly, her voice carrying the gentle tone that had always soothed the golden retriever. "Remember our afternoon walks? How you'd always stop to smell those purple flowers by Mrs. Chen's fence?" She continued speaking, weaving memories into her recording, pausing occasionally to hum fragments of the lullabies she used to sing while brushing Lucy's coat. For nearly an hour, Kayla recorded stories, songs, and gentle words of encouragement. She included the special whistle she'd taught Lucy years ago and the playful phrases they'd shared during training sessions. When she finally finished, her cheeks were damp with tears, but she smiled, knowing this recording might help Lucy during the time she needed to step out. Eva watched in amazement as they tested the recording for the first time. Lucy, who had been dozing in her corner, immediately lifted her head at the sound of Kayla's recorded voice. Her ears twitched forward, and her tail gave a gentle thump against the floor. Even though Kayla stood right there in the room, Lucy's reaction to the recording was unmistakable. They began playing the audio track whenever Kayla had to run errands or take care of necessary tasks outside the house. Each time, Lucy responded with the same attention, as if Kayla's voice was a warm blanket wrapping around her. Sometimes she would whine softly in response to particular phrases or songs, showing clear recognition. Dr. Pearson visited one afternoon to check on Lucy's progress and witnessed this remarkable interaction. He stood in the doorway, medical bag in hand, watching as Lucy's entire demeanor changed at the sound of the recording. The veterinarian's professional curiosity was immediately piqued. "This is fascinating," he remarked, kneeling beside Lucy to observe her more closely. "The physical response is undeniable. Her heart rate steadies, her breathing becomes more regular, and there's visible muscle relaxation." He made notes in Lucy's chart, documenting the specific changes he observed. Dr. Pearson began sharing Lucy's case with colleagues at veterinary conferences, using it as an example of the profound emotional connections between dogs and their human companions. He emphasized how these bonds could influence physical health and recovery, particularly in elderly dogs facing multiple health challenges. The recording became a vital tool in Lucy's care routine. Eva noticed that Lucy seemed more relaxed during treatments and medication times when Kayla's voice played in the background. Even on harder days, when Lucy's energy was low, the familiar sound of Kayla's voice would spark a response, a tail wag, a lifted head, or simply a softening of her worried expression. As spring settled into Greenfield, a gentle routine emerged in Eva's home. Each morning began with Lucy's soft whimpers, no longer cries of pain, but gentle requests for breakfast. Kayla would prepare small portions of specially cooked chicken and rice, carefully measuring each serving to ensure Lucy got the nutrition she needed without overwhelming her sensitive stomach. "There you go, sweet girl," Kayla would whisper, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside Lucy's feeding area. She'd watch with quiet joy as Lucy took careful, deliberate bites of her food. Though slower than in her younger years, Lucy now finished most of her meals, each successful feeding feeling like a small victory. Eva found herself pausing throughout the day just to watch Lucy's progress. Sometimes tears would well up in her eyes when she caught sight of Lucy stretched out in a patch of sunlight, her chest rising and falling peacefully. These quiet moments felt precious, like gifts she hadn't dared hope for just weeks ago. The yard became their sanctuary during the warmer afternoons. Kayla would guide Lucy with gentle hands, supporting her on their short walks through the garden. Lucy's steps were measured and careful, but her nose worked overtime, taking in the spring scents with obvious pleasure. She particularly enjoyed pausing near the flowering bushes, where butterflies would sometimes dance just out of reach. "Remember when you used to chase those?" Kayla would ask softly, scratching behind Lucy's ears as they rested on the garden bench. Lucy's tail would thump slowly against the ground in response, her eyes bright with recognition. Eva noticed how Kayla seemed to bloom alongside Lucy. The worried creases that had marked her forehead when she first arrived had smoothed out. She moved with purpose now, her own struggles seeming less heavy as she focused on Lucy's care. Sometimes Eva would catch Kayla singing quietly while preparing Lucy's meals, or hear her laughing softly at Lucy's attempts to sneak an extra treat. They developed a schedule that worked for everyone: morning walk, scheduled meals, medication times, and plenty of rest periods. Lucy's special blanket, the one embroidered with her name, became her favorite spot for afternoon naps. She would often roll onto her side, inviting belly rubs that both Eva and Kayla happily provided. The house felt different now, warmer, more alive. Even though Lucy moved slower and needed help with things she once did easily, her presence filled their days with purpose and quiet joy. Every small sign of improvement, whether it was Lucy finishing a meal or managing a slightly longer walk, felt like a precious gift. During quiet evenings, they would sit together in the living room, Lucy stretched out between them, her head often resting on Kayla's lap while Eva gently stroked her back. These peaceful moments held a depth of gratitude that neither woman could fully express. Gratitude for Lucy's resilience, for their chance to care for her, and for the unexpected healing they'd all found together. The late spring evenings had grown warmer, but Lucy's energy seemed to dim with each passing sunset. Despite her continued appetite and the sparkle that still occasionally lit up her eyes, her movements became increasingly labored. Eva noticed how Lucy would pause halfway through their short garden walks, her breathing more strained than usual. "She's tired today," Kayla observed one afternoon, gently supporting Lucy's weight as the old dog struggled to climb the single porch step. What once took seconds now required careful navigation and frequent rests. Lucy's golden coat, though regularly brushed and cared for, had lost some of its luster. She spent longer hours sleeping, and her morning greetings, while still loving, lacked their recent enthusiasm. Even her tail wagging seemed to require more effort, though she never failed to respond to Kayla's voice or Eva's gentle touch. Dr. Pearson's evening visit wasn't entirely unexpected. He had been making regular house calls to check on Lucy, and his familiar presence brought comfort to the household. This time, however, his expression carried a different weight as he completed his examination. Settling into Eva's living room chair, Dr. Pearson chose his words carefully. "Lucy has fought incredibly hard," he began, his voice gentle but clear. "The care you've both provided has been nothing short of extraordinary. She's defied odds and given us all a beautiful lesson in resilience." Eva's hands trembled slightly as she sat on the couch, Kayla close beside her. Lucy lay at their feet, her breathing slow but steady. "But her body is very tired now," Dr. Pearson continued, his professional demeanor softening with genuine emotion. "She's showing signs that the struggle is becoming too much for her." That evening, after Dr. Pearson left, Lucy made her way to her favorite spot near the couch. With some assistance from Kayla, she settled down, resting her head on Kayla's lap. Her eyes, though heavy-lidded, held a deep contentment as Eva knelt beside them, gently stroking her ears the way Lucy had always loved. Kayla began to sing softly, her voice carrying the same gentle melody she'd used to soothe Lucy during their earliest days together. Lucy's tail thumped once against the floor, a quiet acknowledgement of the familiar tune. As the lullaby filled the room, Lucy's gaze grew distant, yet there was no fear in her eyes. She seemed to be listening intently to Kayla's voice while leaning into Eva's touch, surrounded by the two people who meant everything to her. Her breathing remained steady but shallow, each exhale carrying a soft sigh of what seemed like peaceful acceptance. As dawn broke over Greenfield, the first rays of sunlight filtered through Eva's living room windows. Lucy lay peacefully between Eva and Kayla, her breathing growing increasingly shallow until, with one final gentle sigh, she slipped away. The moment was filled with a profound stillness, broken only by the soft sounds of Eva and Kayla's quiet tears. The house felt different that morning, emptier yet somehow full of Lucy's presence. Her water bowl still sat in its usual corner, and her favorite tennis ball remained on the windowsill where she'd last dropped it. Eva and Kayla held each other, sharing memories through their tears. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. By afternoon, people began arriving with flowers, cards, and food. Mrs. Thompson from next door brought a carefully pressed flower from her garden, the same flowers Lucy used to sniff during their morning walks. The mailman, who had always saved special treats for Lucy, left a heartfelt note describing how she had brightened his daily route for years. In the backyard, beneath the maple tree where Lucy had spent countless hours basking in the sunshine, neighbors gathered for a small memorial. They placed fresh flowers around a newly planted rose bush. Lucy's Rose, they decided to call it. Each person shared a story. How Lucy had welcomed them to the neighborhood, how she'd played with their children, or how her gentle presence had comforted them during difficult times. Kayla spoke of their early days together, her voice trembling as she recalled teaching Lucy new tricks and spending lazy afternoons in the backyard. She taught me more about love than I ever taught her about sitting or staying, she said, managing a small smile through her tears. Eva shared stories of Lucy's puppyhood, of midnight comfort sessions during thunderstorms, and of the countless ways Lucy had helped her heal after losing her husband. She wasn't just a dog, Eva explained, her voice steady despite her tears. She was a teacher of unconditional love. As the days passed, Eva kept Lucy's favorite bed by the fireplace. Sometimes she'd find herself automatically reaching down to pat a golden head that was no longer there, but the sharp pain of loss gradually softened into gentle remembrance. She created a photo album dedicated to Lucy's life, filling it with pictures from puppy days to senior years. The story of Lucy's final rally spread throughout the community, touching hearts and inspiring others. Dr. Pearson shared it with his veterinary colleagues, emphasizing how the power of love and familiar voices could reach through even the deepest despair. The local animal shelter began encouraging volunteers to record their voices for elderly dogs, inspired by how Kayla's voice had given Lucy the strength to hold on. Weeks later, when a carefully wrapped package arrived from Kayla, Eva found herself smiling through tears as she opened it. Inside was a beautifully framed photograph of Lucy as a puppy, her eyes bright with mischief as she playfully tugged on her favorite stuffed duck. The note tucked inside read simply, "She reminded me what love can do. Thank you for never giving up on her." Eva placed the frame on her mantel next to Lucy's collar and a small jar containing some of her golden fur. The morning sun caught the glass, making Lucy's puppy eyes sparkle just as they had in life. In that moment, Eva felt Lucy's presence, not as a sharp ache of loss, but as a warm reminder of a love that had changed them all. If you enjoyed the story of Lucy, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.